So you're
Yeah.
fighting scurvy, you're caffeinated, you're hydrated, you're in your lane,
And
you're
like,
thriving.
learning barber, or, yeah, or listening to electronic music or, whatever the case is. So, yeah.
Amazing. Hi, everyone. Welcome to OSA Backstage. I'm Dani Meyer, and on today's episode, Serena and I are talking with conductor Christopher Allen. He is our guest maestro from Masterworks 4, which features, of course, Stravinsky's Firebird, the amazing overture by Johann Strauss II to Die Fledermaus, and the best violin concerto of all time, the Barber Violin Concerto. I will not be accepting counter arguments. This was a lovely conversation. Christopher is yet another example of someone who did not end up on the path that he necessarily intended to, but I think we'll find that his intention was to make music, and he sure as heck is doing that. In any case, you're going to love it. We hope we'll see you next week because this concert's going to be amazing, and enjoy. Questions.
All the questions. You'll probably come up with a few more in the next, half hour. So,
God can only hope. That's a tiny, tiny cup you have there, sir.
yeah, I have the large one in the morning, and then I get smaller throughout the day. So this is and I have one even smaller. So there you go. Mm. Anywho.
Do you drink the same thing in the progressively tinier cups?
No, no, and the thing is, it's not like this has been well thought out, but we have. I live in New York City, and there's this really great coffee roaster close by that we have. That's my morning. We do like proper just drip coffee, and then we do the what do you call it? I mean, it's very simple. It's like the press. What do you call it?
Nespresso?
Yeah, like an espresso machine that, so I have different flavors that I go throughout the day. So that's it. Really boring and really uninteresting.
But
So,
it's not. Now I have more questions. Is there a progression of flavors? Do you go towards like more
yeah, so
sweet or more?
no, I mean, the darker or the stronger the espresso, is earlier in the day. And then there's like a lighter, medium bodied espresso, later on in the day. It's funny. All these things like happen that we don't even realize we put much thought into, but we do.
Yeah.
I've never thought about my coffee intake till Dani Meyer.
I thrilled that I could introduce this. Now I'm okay. So I'm actually having flashbacks because my piano teacher growing up, she would have a thermos. Zoom's not helping me, but like a human child sized thermos of coffee that she would be drinking still at
All day. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like 9 o'clock at night when we'd finish our lesson. She'd
Hmm.
still be popping the top of that thermos
Yeah.
and pouring herself another cup.
There are people like that. There are people like that. I wouldn't consider myself one, but there are times that I crave coffee at night, there are times that, or like an espresso after like dinner. But my thing is I have to figure out how to get other liquids. I feel like I drink like coffee, and then like I'll have wine in the evening. So it's like I can't just drink coffee and wine throughout the day. Like I need to try to get my water intake, which has always been a little bit tough for me. So
Well, coffee is made with water,
you know what? I've
to be
used the same
fair.
argument, and I've used the same argument with wine and all that. Wine is just fermented, grape juice and all this stuff. So
So you're fighting
yeah.
scurvy, you're caffeinated, you're hydrated, you're in your lane,
And
you're
like,
thriving.
learning barber, or yeah, or listening to electronic music or whatever the case is. So yeah,
Amazing.
we're
Well,
are you dealing with the freeze of your temperature's okay?
we're done. I don't know what it's going to be like for you next week when you're
Yeah.
here, but it is currently 58 and sunny.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. It has been so cold in New York, so cold. I wake up every morning to take my daughter Ella and George to the bus stop, and then I take Ella down to Lincoln Center. And um, It's frigid. I mean, I grew up in New York. I don't remember it being this cold. So anyway, I didn't think I would say that I'm looking forward to going to Omaha for the weather, but hearing that it's like close to 60 sounds pretty good.
It might actually
Mm.
be, yeah, I know we have Maestra Folletta here with us this week, and she said it's -8 in Buffalo.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So on behalf of the weather that we had that we gave to you, I'm very sorry.
Got it. Yeah.
Well, thank you for doing this. This is we've already technically started, but have you met Serena before? Have you two? No.
No, I don't believe so. Yeah.
No, but
Hi,
it's nice to
Serena.
meet you. Hi. I'm looking forward to having you here next week.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I was just kind of, um, a memory popped up on my phone. Um, I was doing a Capuletti e Montecchi with Opera Omaha, and there was a picture of Bavette's. Like I had a meal at Bavette's, and is that the name of it? Am I saying this correctly?
Prove it.
Bouvette. Sorry, Bouvette. See, I knew there should have been a larger smile from you two, and there wasn't that. Bouvette, Bouvette. Okay. Um, and I remember thinking how amazing that little downtown, I don't know, downtown historic area is
Yeah. But you'll get the chance to see it
to
again.
go. Absolutely.
And you'll have actually all of Wednesday
That's
to
right.
you could just park yourself at La Bouvette, and which is exactly what you want this
You
time
do.
of year. It's a very La Boheme kind of feeling,
That's
just
right. You know, it's
perfect.
funny. I have these weird feelings about, like emotional feelings about Omaha because, this is technically my third time there, coming to make music in Omaha. The first time, it was my last contract before the pandemic, and I remember going into the general director's office and saying things are not looking good. We had started rehearsals, and James Darrah, the director, I remember thinking, I don't, we shouldn't be the first company that closes. Sorry, the last company that closed. Like we should kind of like lead the charge how this could go as an industry. But it was still kind of like let's check in kind of at the end of next week and see where things are going and then we could all collectively make a decision. And it's like 3 days later, we were called back into the office, and it was so clear that it wasn't safe for rehearsals to be going on, and it wasn't safe for people to gather together. And I remember everything was canceled, and we called the cast into the room, and Roger White said, unfortunately, we feel like it's the safe thing to do to go home. Um, and it was like one of those things we had this like we did, and the room was going so well, and we were all enjoying being there. We hired all our friends, so it was just like one of those rooms that felt like you wanted to be in and make art and music in. And I remember we're like, well, like, what do you do now? Like, what do we do now? And we all like called our managers. Our flights were booked like the following day, and I got like one of the last flights sort of out of Omaha to Los Angeles. I was living in Los Angeles at the time, but I just remember going there to Bouvette, and we all had a meal. I guess we didn't feel like it was unsafe. This was, I guess, March 8th, if I'm not mistaken. It was March 8th. And I just remember feeling like we don't know what's coming up. We don't know how long this will be. But I remember feeling so present and aware that we were with friends and we were going to enjoy kind of like this last meal. And that happened in Omaha. And then, funnily enough, when things started to kick back up, we went back and finished that production. So it was like Omaha was in many ways this sort of like alpha and omega, like this beginning and end of something. And so I'm very grateful for the place, even though this is only the third time I've been there. So it has a lot of meaning already. So
That's amazing. Yeah, that meal at Bouvette, like we actually orchestra management did something very similar. We ordered pizza and bought a couple of bottles of wine, and sat around the office and just tried to brainstorm.
what's
It was this very
next?
last dinner, sort of like, okay, here's what we think is happening. Here's
Hmm.
here's the plan. We didn't know when we'd be able to do that again, and it's just
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird little timestamp that
Yeah,
you'll always have.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. And
Man,
looking back on it, it sounds so cheesy, and but I feel so grateful for that time period. I had been going for, I don't know, maybe a decade, I would say at that time, around a decade of like kind of nonstop engagements. And I was tired, and embarrassed to admit that I was tired and needed a break. I think we live in a world that's like you have to always feel, or there's pressure. Um, and it maybe is self-imposed, but there's always this pressure to be doing the next thing, the next piece, the next opera, the next debut, the next award, or else it's like you're slowing down, or there's this fear of settling. Um, where interestingly enough, it's like through the pandemic, I realized like I want to settle more than anything in the world. And I don't mean artistically settle. I mean just sitting in the place that I am and be present in the making of whatever art, music, story that I'm telling in that moment. So I'm grateful because I don't think without that time home, um, like I would be the artist I am now. I
yeah.
feel a massive shift in not just the way I think about music, but the way I make music from March 20th or March 8th or
Mhm.
so, 2020. So
So here's a question.
yeah,
Um, do you feel like that break allowed you to become and we've skipped all the traditional stuff, so we'll
yeah,
rewind, but like,
yeah.
do you feel like that break allowed you to go back to the musician that you originally had in mind for yourself, or did you
Yeah.
discover someone totally brand new?
No, the thing with me, and and once again, I don't know. I've debated with my managers whether this is something I keep talking about. I never wanted to be a conductor. Um, I was always a 6 year old like boy in love with making music at the piano, and through serendipity, I've found this journey to the podium, and of course now it's my home and my love, and it feels as authentic to me as does me sitting at the piano. Um, but the pandemic started. I didn't sit at the piano for about a month. I didn't even think about uh, playing anything. And then just one day, sort of on my own accord, I just sat down, and like it's like I just opened up the Bach-Well tempered clavier, and I kind of like each day kind of slowly work through, and I realized how much like my soul, my being, every fiber of my matter needs to make music. And so I feel like I reclaimed what I had as a young 6 year old boy who was just in awe by the sounds of my universe. And I think um, that when I make music now, that never changes. I think I used to, and it's a natural progression. I remember being like 26 and you go off to do, whatever debut with whatever famous singer you grew up listening to, and now you're going to conduct Carmen with this person or Macbeth or whatever you're going to, and it's like this, there's layers and layers of pressure and money, and you're like, I'm getting paid what, like I need to help XYZ person who has done this role 100 times. I'm now conducting them. What do I have to say about this? How can I help this person? How can I facilitate a good performance out of this person? There was so much layered on that I think I forgot that I need to make music and I need to enjoy that. So when I go like next week, I'm really thrilled to make music. Like I have no feelings other than I feel so fortunate to make music. And the schedule has gotten so busy and since then, and the weird thing that hasn't stopped, no matter how many engagements I have sort of back to back or overlapping, anytime I get to make music, I just feel lucky, and I just sort of don't care about the outcome except for the moment of making music. Yeah. I don't know
I
if that answered the question, but it
It
was a
did.
long, long answer.
Yeah, the Great Reset. I find it fascinating that you also went back to Bach. I went to Bach during that time. I know a lot of musicians who did, and it was kind of like the here's the one thing that we can play by ourselves. It is the
Yeah,
one thing we understand. uh, this is the solace of the moment, right?
yeah.
And then, but you kept saying 6 year old. So 6 year old you, what did Bach have to do with 6 year old you?
I remember taking like naps coming home from, kindergarten or first grade. Um, and I say six. Six is when I started studying piano, but it might have before kindergarten. So 5 years old or so. Um, my mother had my family. There aren't any musicians in the family, so this was not something that I grew up with, meaning seeing parents make music or having relatives who were professional musicians. Um, my mom had this little tape player, and it was red. And it was, I mean, it's kind of embarrassing too. It was in the shape of like Mickey Mouse. Like it had like, it looked like a Mickey Mouse. And it could play like cassette tapes, which anybody who's like listening to this, cassette tapes were a thing. Uh, I am a millennial. We had tapes, and so um, and I just remember hearing this music, and my mom. It was Andras Schiff's recordings. I later found out Andras Schiff, his recordings of the Old Tempered Clavier, and I just remembered like I don't. I just remember being like, "What is that?" I just remember, "What is that?" I had like a toy piano at home, and I would go home and I would like go to the toy piano and like start playing stuff. And it was very obvious. A friend said to my mother and father, you really should give this kid lessons. He seems to be pretty precocious. He seems to be like trying to figure things out and playing things. And
He's trying to play
um,
Bach on a repeat
yeah,
after me kitty keyboard.
there you go. And that was it. And then I started lessons. Um, and I was just kind of a weird little kid, Like my daughter Ella, she's at the special music school at the Kaufman Music Center in New York City, and like, yeah, she's 6 years old, and there's always this, okay, it's time to practice, and oh, we have this jury coming up, and it's pretty intense because it's a special music school. No one ever had to tell me to practice. I was just so obsessed with it. And I think it was the way my brain was developing, I needed something that was like physical, and there was something about the piano that was both physical and intellectual, and the combination of both. And also, like, then we got a piano. The piano was like in the corner of the house, and it was the one spot that like my older brother and sister, younger sister, it always felt like there was maybe a little chaos in the house. No one could bother me, and I just kind of locked myself in this beautiful little world of sound. So that was a 6 year old boy. I played sports. I was a very active kid, but I'd go outside and play baseball, and then I would like run to the piano.
So you're a middle child.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Middle child introvert. Okay, at the piano. Amazing.
Yeah. And then it was a weird sort of, this beautiful drug for a young person that like you get pretty good at it, and the more you focus and the more you practice, you get better. And there's a lot of like, all of a sudden your parents like stop and listen to you play and keep going, and it became this. Then you get a little older and you win all the competitions, and it's like it just becomes this thing. I mean, it's like so it was a very exciting thing for me. Even now, if I walk into a room, I won't ever go to play it in front of people. But even walking into a room and I see a piano, I get excited.
I love that so very much. I don't know if all of us won all the competitions growing up.
Yeah.
I definitely got better. I also had a few moments where my dad would walk in and be like, "Are you supposed to sound like that?" Like,
Well, my poor sister, she's a violinist, and so she had a rougher time. My son is also he's a year younger than Ella. He's taking violin, and it's just a very difficult instrument to start. Piano is a very sort of immediate thing, where the violin takes a little more support.
the gratification of an instrument that you can you get instant sound, and if it's
Hmm.
tuned, that it's in tune, is huge. But this okay, but you clearly like thrived, just immediately started
Yeah.
thriving. When did you, was there a moment where you knew that was going to be the career, or did you
You
just kind
know,
of
I've had to kind of put this together with, my mom not that long ago. I did well in school. Like I said to my mom, was there any time that I ever investigated or was interested in something else? Um, and she said no. I think I knew I was my mother took me to Carnegie Hall when I was a little kid, and I remember, I mean, to this day, I remember sitting at the like top all the way in the balcony, and I remember putting my chin on the railing, and the chin and my chin felt like the red velvet that's like covering Carnegie Hall, right? And so I remember being like a little kid, and I was tired. I put my chin on the railing, and Itzhak Perlman was playing Tchaikovsky violin concerto, and um, there was Seiji Ozawa was leading the Boston Symphony, and I just remember being like, I knew my life always was going to be around music. I don't know if I thought I was going to be a pianist. I don't know, but I knew that this sort of sonic world that I was sort of obsessed with as a little kid was gonna be how I spent my time here on Earth. I just knew it. you know I have a lot of interest. I mean, I have a lot of other interest, and even when I was studying here in New York, like I was taking philosophy classes at Columbia and world religion. Like, I mean, I was always I read, sort of incessantly, so I have a lot of other interests. But how I would spend my life, I knew it would be around music and storytelling. I mean, I knew that from even that age, I would say.
love that so very much. I And now I'm super curious because so in work in getting ready for this, I saw that you one had to take a conducting course
Yeah.
at Manhattan, and that you had, like you said, you had no interest in being a
No
conductor.
interest.
So do you know why that's part of the curriculum?
It's a good question. I mean, I think we were asking that same question in that class. I don't know if we ever had an answer. I mean, most of that class, they were like orchestral. They had a really good orchestral degree. That so I think it was, if you're going to sit in an orchestra every day of your life, you should at least kind of know what it feels like to stand in front of a group, to try to lead them. What are the issues that that person standing in front of you might have or doesn't have? I think they viewed it as a basic sort of musicianship class. It's like it forces you to get out of your if you're a violinist, whatever the Sibelius violin concerto, and then all of a sudden we have to focus on the staff from the basses all the way to the piccolo. I mean, it forces you to get out. um uh I think they also thought that doing something that you're not good at in front of somebody is a very um it's good to be able to try to do something and just be really bad at it in front of people. And I think that's a good lesson in itself, that not being good at something, to these rock star cellists who are like the best of the best, to like come back to not being great and trying to conduct a bunch of people. And the best part of it was that the people in the class, they all played their instruments for this class. So like the orchestra was actually pretty, like it was like maybe 20 people, but I mean it was like pretty good. Like they were great musicians and so on and so forth. So but none of us wanted to be there. I think is what I'm saying. We all felt, I think at the time, I think retrospectively, I think
Yeah.
this is a great idea. Looking back on it, we did not want to be there. Yeah.
That's like forcing a stand up, like an open mic night
That's it.
on people.
That's it.
Um, and that's interesting. It's like you have to be force yourself to be bad at something in front of your peers. It's like, well, for so many of us, that was already in studio class. You
Yeah,
have
that's sure. Sure.
even
Yeah.
on the instrument that you're best at. But
Yeah, there was a Spanish violinist. I'm not going to say his name. He's very well known, and I remember it was his turn to go up and conduct the first couple measures of Beethoven's First Symphony. And he is just one of the most beautiful players you've ever heard. And I just remember him going to conduct this, and it was a disaster. And no one could come in, and no one knew how to resolve the first chord. I mean, it was, and we all stopped because we know how gifted he is. I'll never forget him saying, he goes, "Well, this is harder than it looks." So, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's why we were all in that class.
It's really an empathy class.
It's
So
an
that
empathy class.
the actual conductors, it's like we're trying to make New York musicians nicer.
Yeah. But the funny thing is that I don't even think I was that good. I just don't think I was bad. I think I was like just not as bad as everybody else. And whenever we would have like a hard excerpt, they said, "Who wants to go first?" And I was always thrown up first because people thought I just was better than the other people. But
just get you out of the
was
way.
it. But that was it. And then the person leading that class said to me, "I think you should be a conductor," But I just had no desire to do that. I didn't have any desire to. I wanted to go, to Juilliard or Manhattan and do a master's degree. But I didn't come from tremendous means, and there was just no way, even with my 75% scholarship at Juilliard, there was no way I could have afforded to go. And so he said most of these programs have great scholarship opportunities and assistantship opportunities. So go for conducting and study piano on the side. And that's what I did. It was pure serendipity, pure serendipity.
It's really interesting though that you didn't love it, but you must not have disliked it. It must have.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you feel like you're okay at something, it feels good to do it. It's like, oh, I wonder if I could get better at, and maybe that was just me at the piano when I was a little kid. It was the same thought. I say I didn't want to be a conductor. I went for one audition, and the stakes for me weren't stakes at all. I didn't want to pursue it, so I went. I studied a little bit, but I remember part of the audition, I had to conduct the Enigma Variations by Elgar, and I remember walking off the podium after that audition, and it was like I was hit with a lightning bolt. So that was the moment I thought, "Oh, hey, maybe there's something here."
Okay.
Because it was the first time I felt like I can make music different way, but in a similar way to the way I do at the piano. And although I can't play my left hand a certain way, I can still sculpt the sound the same way. All the textures I want to bring out of the piano, well, I could actually do that with the incredible people in front of me. And if I use my same knowledge of theory, history, phrasing, and music, if there's something I could do to lead to get better performances out of the people in front of me, maybe there's something here. So that's when I got the bug. And then I studied orchestral conducting at that point.
Okay.
And kind of left piano behind. It was like sort of my new girlfriend, and I was sort of obsessed with, and I kind of went all in at that moment with conducting.
Was that before LA Opera or
That
like
was before. This was my
Okay.
master's degree. And then I went to Cincinnati Conservatory of Music, and about a week or so in, people knew I was a good pianist, and there was like a position that opened up in the opera department. And they say, we hear you could play anything. And they're like, "Can you play for our opera?" And I was like, same thing. I was like, I'm not really qualified. I don't know the repertoire. I mean, I had always gone to opera, but I didn't know the repertoire enough. And then I just became like obsessed with that. And it's like I started studying languages, and I started playing for thousands of voice lessons. And I'm like, oh, interesting. Because like when you hear somebody sing, like how can I get simultaneously as I'm studying orchestral conducting, how can I get the string section to make music like that? Right? Like how a phrase that feels very square, well, it feels square to me because I'm always with a singer who, because of their breath and where they're going into the word they're going to, they have to phrase a certain way. That's just very natural. And the way we sing, you don't want to hear me sing, but even when I sing is more natural than, sometimes even the way I play the piano. And so then I started to like kind of combine both worlds. LA
So would you say,
Opera, yeah. Sorry, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
no, it's just like it sounds like voice became like the ultimate new girlfriend because
Yeah,
yeah.
at that point, it was just music. There was a good blend of music. It was like I was just obsessed with making music, and it was like I was too much in like orchestral land, piano land, voice land, and it was just like, yeah,
So did opera become you're most known for your work with opera and with
yeah.
voice?
It's funny because like yeah, I think that's fair to say. It's something we're sort of, my managers and I are kind of always fighting because if you look at my schedule, half is symphonic and half is opera at this point.
Mhm.
But yeah, once you become a little well known in something, you're kind of pigeonholed into that. Yeah.
And I think I say that that surprises me that it would be a negative, just because when you think of opera, you think of this like the immense concentration that is required for there's really just no mental break. And at least,
Totally.
Serena, when I filled in for you for that rehearsal, at least in between, it's a musical that we're doing this week. It's really awesome program built with different community partners, and it's a take on Hansel and Gretel,
Oh, cool, great.
and so brand new music. And concentrating on voice and small ensemble at the same time, just realizing it, like, at least the lucky thing is between each song I can just take a second, or the conductor or the musicians can take a second to blink and reset. And in
Yeah.
opera, what a feat of concentration, because
Yeah.
you never get a bar.
And not only that, like I'm going off to do a Marriage of Figaro right after this. It's a piece that I love and I've done quite a bit. I also play my recits. So like I go from conducting to playing recits to, the other thing is just from a technical perspective, um, I'll fight to the death. You take the most difficult symphony in the world to conduct, most difficult symphony is easier and not even close to a moderately difficult opera.
Mm.
The amount of technique, skill, even to get through the first act of Bohème and how to take time and how to move and how to support the singers to know when that happens, when to ignore them, when to listen, when the orchestra needs you, and to be able to pace that the way that first act needs to be paced. You have to be a complete master of your craft to do this well. And so I say this, I feel very grateful that I've had such a rich life in opera. And I believe I bring that to the symphonic repertoire. I do. I mean, if you look at Tchaikovsky's Sixth Symphony, I mean, it's a four-act opera, whatever the case is. It's you can't just hear music as just music. I mean, there's always some story going on, even in abstraction there's a story going on, And so um, it's so hard to do well. I think in the United States in particular, there's such a divide. People conduct opera or people conduct symphonic.
Mm.
Um, in Europe, this isn't as much the case. And the music director of the Berlin Philharmonic was an opera guy. The great old conductors were all opera people. They were all great opera conductors. I happen to come up at a time that this feels very segregated in terms of music making. But, and we'll talk further about my other sort of projects. I have always just refused to um, be put in that box musically. I just won't do it. So, yeah.
I mean, yeah, obviously, because you keep I feel like you keep finding new ways
Yeah.
or even just what happened at school. It's like, well, yes, you've already started training me in this, and this unlocked these three doors. It's very, very Bluebeard's castle, like.
It is very much so. Yeah. And they feed each other, right? I mean, my symphonic experience and being able to get into depth about nuance of sound in a symphony you do not get with opera. You just don't. I mean, I have a 3 hour opera and you get two reads and then you're with singers. I mean, you have to show everything. I mean, you have to show everything. And when you stop to give a comment, that comment has to change the sonic world of that piece 100%, or there's no time to stop and do it. So, but my time in the symphonic world has helped me to create more of a language that can immediately affect the orchestras in my operas. Talking and coaching the great singers of our world helped me to talk about music and phrasing and style in a way to strings that if I didn't work with those singers, I wouldn't be able to communicate with the strings.
Do you
It's
feel like
daunting. It's a daunting task, right? I mean, you never feel, and the older I get, the more I'm like, I don't know if I know anything. I mean, really, that's honestly, and I'm not saying that
yeah,
facetiously. I mean, the
yeah.
the older you get, the harder this all seems to be.
The more you know, the more aware you are that you don't know as
Yeah,
much as you think you know.
that's it.
I Do you feel like your work with vocalists especially, like I love that
Yeah,
idea of you have no time. That comment better be earth-shattering, or
that's
what's
right.
the point? Does that same approach Do you bring that same approach, say, like when you're supporting a soloist? So we're doing the Barber Violin Concerto with you, which
Yeah.
is one of the greatest,
Oh my God.
greatest
Yeah.
concertos of all time.
Yeah.
Do you feel like it's the same idea there, or is there more time?
Yeah. Working with the soloist, it's just it's a very logistical issue. You meet them. Sometimes you've worked together. Francisco and I know each other pretty well, but we've actually never worked together. We have the same manager. We've been together, but we've never worked together. You have a 30-minute meeting, and then you're with orchestra, and that's it. So you know. That scenario is always difficult because it always feels like you have one or two rehearsals to kind of get this going. But being succinct in your rehearsals, that's the same whether you have a little more time preparing your symphonic week, uh, but you learn how to be disciplined about it and choosing the right words. I say all this. I'll probably talk way too much on Tuesday, or
But we also have the distinct advantage of the four rehearsals are with the same group of people.
That's right.
And so it's not like two opera reads and then you immediately bring in the full cast and company of
That's
an
right.
opera,
It's a
where every comment during an orchestra rehearsal should be for the, well, let me rephrase. Everyone's listening to every comment during an orchestra rehearsal. And so it's not as if you've worked with just one group of people and then you're
and you're
suddenly adding.
combining. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
but then there's also the case of, we're doing opera repertoire
Yeah,
without the
yeah, yeah.
opera. And so
Yeah.
I'm very curious if there's going to be some like,
You
is there
know,
any ingrained muscle memory where that'll have you looking up to a stage?
yeah, no, I mean that might not happen, but it's funny because when we talked about programming, it was very much let's find a program that like I can identify with.
Yeah.
Uh, the thing about the Die Fledermaus Overture is that it's so remarkably difficult. Um, Almost everything that needs to be done isn't on the page. It's not on the page. There's so much style. There's so much tradition. There's so much knowledge about, uh, Austrian or German operetta at that time period, where we take time in an 8-bar phrase, six things happen, and you turn on a dime, but everything is still very character driven, right? So it's impossible for me to conduct that piece in isolation as a concert piece. And everybody, I'm always conflicted because you always feel like, oh, the orchestra doesn't want to hear stories or doesn't want to hear kind of what I'm thinking about in terms of this phrase, and people might kind of like shrug their shoulders a bit, but it always affects the sound. And to talk about, hey, there's this glance, and then all of a sudden she turns away because she sees somebody. Well, that's gonna the sound is perfectly right, right? So pick it up, pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. It's just like all of a sudden that makes sense. If I say, okay, put a little accent on the first of the trill, the second note needs to be lighter. Feel a sense of accelerando through this, and then play through the last three notes legato with an accent on the penultimate note and a resolution that's phrased. You could say all of that, or you could just give them a little thing to think about, and the sound is right. So for me, it's what's ingrained in me is the fact that I think of everything in terms of storytelling and in terms of character. And what is the character? Well, we have da dee da dum, da dee da dum, ba dee da dum, ba dum, and then we have yum ba beep ba beep ba bum. They're two different voices. They're two people. Yum bum bum is one thing. Da digga digga digga. Yum bum bum. Da digga digga digga. Yum bum bum. Da digga 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 digga. Dum bum bum. And then we have the slurs. Digga dum digga dum digga dum digga dum bum 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 bum. Right. So it's very easy to play yum bum bum. Da digga 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 dum ba ba. Da digga 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 dum ba ba. Da digga 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 dum bum bum. Digga dum digga dum digga dum. And this isn't a criticism, because orchestra members are responding to the music in front of them, and some mostly they're sight reading, and but the specificity we encounter in storytelling, because there are words generally, with opera, I absolutely, it's ingrained in me to bring to my symphonic repertoire.
So right, because one version of that is micromanagement, and the other version of that is putting people in a time and a place. And when you have approximately, I don't know, 30 seconds between the tuning note and when you walk on stage and when you start, and you have to immediately transport to a time and a place.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
I have a particular question, or a specific question about Firebird, since that's a ballet, and I have a particular interest in ballet, but I don't know if do you have any experience in ballet? Have you conducted Firebird as ballet? How will you approach that in rehearsal, or what are you looking forward to? Is it a visual thing for you, or are there still words to the story?
Yeah, I'm obsessed with ballet. I haven't ever conducted ballet, and I don't think my manager would even let me conduct ballet. But I'm obsessed with ballet. Obsessed. I mean, it's the one thing that I will regularly in the city go to see. I love the idea of physicalizing sound. And I love to see how these remarkable athletes physicalize sound. And just like a conductor, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, up and down. I mean, there's whether you conduct, Dani conducts, I conduct, pretty much the mechanics are the same. Pretty much the mechanics
speak
are the
for
same.
Yourself.
Yeah. But we all physicalize sound differently. And so what's always interesting to me is, even when, you go to the New York City Ballet or American Ballet Theater, even when you have 12 people doing the exact same thing, they are physicalizing sound differently. I love that. Obsessed with ballet. Never have conducted ballet. Regarding Firebird, for me, so much of it, the Firebirds dance, it's like drum, dum, I mean, you could see the physical gestures. I mean, you could see it. So for me, I want to bring that out in the music. Just like I was talking about the specificity of words and phrasing, let's isolate what are those gestures, like, and more importantly, just so it's not diggity dum, diggity dum, diggity dum, diggity dum. And so I think that's, knowing it's a ballet, knowing it's music written to the story. I mean, I know the story. I have watched the ballet. I've watched every version of the ballet. I've created a whole world in my head, which I won't even talk about. But I've created a whole world, because for me, it all comes down to storytelling. And it's so cliche, and it feels so corny even to say it. But whether I'm making electronic music or I'm making music with my vocal group, whether opera, symphony, people are going to experience some type of a story that makes them question, to think, and there's something. Why do I have a newborn son as of December 15th, and
Congratulations.
thank you. So my hands have been full of late, but every night we read stories. Memories of my mom and dad are reading stories. Like, why do we do this? As people, why do we do this? Why do people use religion, use stories so much? Why is text so important? Why do we pass this stuff down, you know? So for me, knowing it's a ballet is important. Knowing that there's a story going on it's our mission to bring that out. Does that answer? I don't know if that answers the question. Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I I love I love that so much. I find it fascinating that you come from this background that's really lush, ever all these components coming together, and yet somewhat ironically your current ensemble, your main ensemble is Fourth Wall, which is an all vocal ensemble.
Yeah.
And so how do you one was that is that a surprise? Was that a surprise? Or like
You
how do
know,
you isolate that?
similarly, after the pandemic, well, we moved from Los Angeles to New York after the pandemic, and my wife is a singer, and she would have her friends over for dinner, um, and we've been very fortunate, and we I feel like have a very charmed life. And her friends come over for dinner, and they're some of the most talented people like in the world. And their main source of income is singing in a church on Sunday, and they have to do 100+ gigs a year just to kind of make ends meet. And so, um, I thought that was systemically is a problem. So there was this feeling of like service at my age being, I was 35 or whatever the case was, and I said, what can I do to help, and uh, how can I get people to get paid more? How can I get contracts that they feel artistically and financially satisfied with? So that is a lot of it was kind of a social thing. Um, but I love the idea of, this is a whole other conversation, but uh, when I go to do a requiem, a Mozart requiem, it's like, and the habit is like, you can talk about the most intricate, nuanced sound with an orchestra, and then you get to the choir, and it's like loud, soft, open vowel, closed vowel, and I'm like, we've got to do something about this. If we have 6, 8, 10, 12 of the finest musicians and singers in a group, can we start talking about sound in a way that like a string quartet would? Could we be involved in storytelling in a way that most choirs are just standing there and not? And so this became the funny thing. You asked if I was surprised. This just became something that was gonna, we're gonna get together a couple times a year and do things. But this took off like wildfire, and we had a lot of sort of significant debuts and opportunities, and I just came back from the first tour and recordings, and um, the other social or systemic issue I'm always trying to figure out is I'm genuinely interested in how these organizations, which have traditionally been supported by philanthropy, whether it was their church, whether it was the aristocracy, whether it was wealthy donors or the government. I mean, that's generally I know nothing I'm saying is new. Uh, well, what is there a way to design and create an organization that through touring, through commercial recordings, through other opportunities, look for ways of revenue that we could potentially, within 5 to 10 years, become completely financially independent of patronage? Is that possible? And so I have a really good feeling in the way it's going. I think this is very possible. So systemically, how do we bring people to, your organization to tell stories that they need to hear? That's been the whole thing with Fourth Wall. I've been surprised that in some ways it's sort of taking off as quickly as it has. Um, and the other thing, maybe this is just where I'm at right now. I feel like a major disruptor. I have no interest in doing the same 18 programs that are done sort of every single year. And, I know everybody's trying their best, but these opera companies that I'm employed by and who are really working to treat their artists well. But, whatever the issue is, we're doing the same 4 to 8 operas, like rotating every year. And I don't think the question of like, who do we serve is really being answered a lot of times. And the problem is that it's different where we are, right? Like who we serve here in New York City, it might be different than Kansas City, right? I mean, but a disruptor. I viewed the group as being disruptive. We weren't going to sing Bach motets in a church, and that's beautiful. And like, I love this repertoire, but like, we're going to put crazy music and Sariaho, and we're going to do a drone show, and we're going to do a popular concert at Carnegie Hall. Then we're going to do it all Caroline Shaw. And then we're going to record this crazy music. And then we're going to do science show in San Francisco, which we just came back. We're going to do a theatrical show, which like sold out, and we're going to be doing it again the following year. So there's something that feels slightly disruptive about the group that I love. I love the idea of doing a commission for 8 vocalists with insert orchestra name, and then doing something at, Joe's Pub downtown. And I think what unifies it is that you still have the same 8 or musicians who have come together to explore sound and to explore storytelling. It's the same. And so that's been sort of another obsession of mine in the last 3.5 years.
So would you say that when you go ahead?
Sorry, I just had a quick question about Fourth Wall. Were they involved in Sensorium X?
That's right. Yeah.
Which was also done in Omaha, for people who are listening. And what was that like? So
Paolo Prestini, I know through New York, and we made a debut at National Sawdust. I conducted Sariaho. The topic of the evening was night sky, and light pollution, and Paula and I hit it off, and she knew me through the opera world. And what's happening a lot, and we get quite a few inquiries at this point monthly. Opera companies are, as they're developing opera, they're developing a lot of opera that have less principal cast. So maybe there's 2 or 3 main soloists or principals, and then they have an ensemble. But this isn't like a standard operatic La Traviata big opera chorus. It's like 6 or 8 sort of highly skilled ensemble singers. So we've become known in the industry for being able to provide these highly skilled people to fill the role of a lot of new opera that's being created. I unfortunately was not able to. I had an engagement during that time, so I missed the performances. But everybody was completely blown away by the piece and by the subject matter.
Yeah. I mean, certainly disruptive, as you say, really, really in that same vein. I know Dani and I both saw that production. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. It was gorgeous and very effective.
Yeah.
And very different. It took you to a time and a place, and it very firmly kept you there.
Yeah.
And
okay.
So my follow-up question would be this attitude that you approach, like every time you get to work with these fantastic vocalists, and this idea of like, we are going together, we are on the same track, we are on the same mindset. Is that the place that you want to be with every orchestra or every opera that you work with from go?
Absolutely. I think one feeds the other. I think, this is a whole other story. I mean, we have a studio in Astoria, and my writing partner, Phil Maffa, he's a brilliant sound artist, and we record a lot of electronic music. We wrote the music for a theater piece that's happening at Public Theater. We just scored a film. My time making music with electronic music and scoring directly helps Stravinsky. I think when organizations feel financial pressure, the first thing they do is artistically shrink. They feel that in order to sell tickets, they feel in order to like keep going as is the status quo, anything that might challenge, or they don't know if it's going to sell, they don't know if the audience will like, I don't believe our an organization's goal is to get them to like everything. I think we want to be a place that continues to ask really great questions. And in a world where people need to feel, they need to think, they need time to stop, they're so stimulated by all the things. We have to challenge. We have to be a community where we can come together and just experience and feel and to think. And I think audiences are more, if it's done well, are more adventurous than we as the organization give them credit for. And I think ballet is a perfect example of this. Ballet traditionally is artistically more experimental than a lot of operas and orchestras because it's about the physicalizing of the body, right? It's of sound, right? If you go to the New York City Ballet, you will see like the partita, Caroline Shaw partita for 8 voices, and then you will see like something that has what feels like has nothing to do with it, but there is a connection. I always feel this whole model of and this is me just questioning. I'm not saying I have the answer, but like with programming, it's like, okay, we have okay, now we have an all French night, and we have a German conductor, so we're going to do all German music, and okay, that person does early music, so we're going to have them do the early symphonies of Mozart, or we're going to do the Handel's Messiah with that person. I think we have to challenge this. I think we have to challenge this. I think we have to be more adventurous with these decisions. I think we have to be afraid to flop and fall on our face sometimes. And in that process of falling and flopping on our face, we could meaningfully connect with the audiences that have assembled there. And when people feel like they're a part of something that's really exciting, they'll come back and come back and come back. People want to be a part of something that feels vibrant, authentic, and real. People don't want to feel like we're going back to put something on a record player. And I think I use the word disruptive. I don't even feel like what I'm saying is not disruptive. But in the world that we live, it's sort of deemed as disruptive. We have to create. I think humans need to create. I think that people need to, an audience needs to see humans create. And so that's kind of why I unabashedly, I make electronic music. I have a vocal ensemble. I spend a lot of my time conducting, the Aida, Magic Flute, Daughter of the Regiment. I'm known for doing all the Italian bel canto repertoire. And then I'll play, piano. Yeah, I think it's all related. I think it's all related.
I just finished watching this Brandon Sanderson video, and he was giving a talk on AI, and he's trying to summarize his thoughts on AI. But one of the things he referenced was the character of Data in Star Trek, and why Data was different from the AI model. It's like Data is always trying to figure out what it means to be human, and so he will always pursue these things that are uniquely human. He will try. He won't be necessarily good at them, but he understands the concept of trying. And so Brandon Sanderson's summary was, we in fact are the art, that because pursuing art and creating and trying, we actually alter and transform ourselves in the act, in just the process, in the act of doing it. And I think just being in the audience, going to something live, being part of that, you also become part of the transformation and part of the art. And it's such a gift that we can do that all together, because there are,
Yeah.
seems like fewer things that we do as a large collective group. It's why movies are always
Yeah.
best in the theater together. It's why,
Totally.
yeah, I love that so much.
Totally. And I think the whole AI question, I was in some ways we are AI proof. And that's not I was literally having this conversation with the head of AI for Google last weekend. Live music is AI proof, right? Filming, maybe you could I want something that sounds like John Williams and Hans Zimmer, whatever. Like, I mean, you could kind of figure out how to. There is nothing like sitting and experiencing, like the vibration of a string with people, But I think
Live,
organizations need to be better. I think we need to be better. So I don't. There are so many things that I'm a part of that I wouldn't leave my apartment to go see, to be totally frank. And I think we need to have these conversations. Everybody's so afraid to say, I think these things. But when you go home on a Friday night after a long week of work, what do you want to see? Like what makes you be like, oh my God, I cannot wait to go home. I'll do a little run, workout, and I'm heading out to XYZ to go experience and to feel. I think we need to ask ourselves these questions, you know?
going to live music, the joy of going to a live concert is why in the 21st century you can go see Firebird and someone will still be surprised at the ferocity. Have you
Oh
seen
my
this
God.
that
I
video
did.
of,
I
yeah,
did. Oh my God, that's so great. It's so great.
it's but that's I think we're putting people in a
Yeah,
time and a place, and that's the joy of it, and they can only get that by being
that's
there.
right. That's
And
right.
speaking of joy, uh we have one last question for you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you've done everything. So this is, I mean, well, granted, you have not played everything, but you've
Yeah.
done a lot. So I'm very curious what your answer is going to be. But if you had 30 minutes on stage, no consequences, you could do anything, try anything. What are you doing?
Um, you mean myself on stage with an orchestra on
You,
stage?
yeah, all the instruments are available to you. The rigging's available to you. The light booth, like whatever you want to do, whatever you want to try. You have 30 minutes.
You know, I this is I don't know. I haven't thought about this, so I'm just throwing this
Off
out
the
there.
cuff. Off the
I feel like so much of our training, it's like the phrasing and the articulation of Beethoven and it's about like this beautiful execution of something, right? And a lot of the electronic music that I'm making right now with Phil Maffa, um, I'm surrounded by synthesizers and keyboards, and I say, okay, like what key are we in? And a lot of times it's not even like F major, it's like F Lydian or Phrygian or whatever the case is.
yeah.
And then we say like, is there any thematic idea of exploring? Like, is there or a feeling or a story or whatever? And he hits record, and we play for sometimes like an hour and a half, and it feels so freeing. And I would love to like this idea of free improv, not jazz. I mean free improv, to be able to have a group of really brilliant musicians in an orchestra that have all the capabilities of playing anything they want to create in the moment, and to have somebody like Phil lay down a drone and to get to get the lower strings to play a drone, and then you point to a soloist and you let them improv on that drone, and then you add somebody, and then you have percussion. I love the feeling of being able to create just authentically in a moment. It feels like we're doing something so naughty when so much of our work is like rehearsal to get to a certain moment to execute, where this is just being free in the moment to create.
Of course, your answer is a group exercise.
I mean, yeah. What would you do? I have a question. What's another answer? What would you
Serena,
do?
you've never. What would
Or
I would.
Serena? Yeah.
I guess I usually the answers range between like, oh, I just want to play the cello or the contrabassoon. I always thought that sounded cool, or I just want to whack everything back there in the percussion section. I want to play the laptop because of the Mason Bates.
Uh-huh.
What would I want to do in 30? Um, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a tough question.
It's a
Tough
tough
question, but
question.
good question. Danny, what about you? What's
Oh, the more I think about it, the more it would be the last two movements of Shostakovich 9 or the last movement of Prokofiev 5. I would just subject my
got it?
colleagues to the worst conducting known to
Conductor.
man for my own gratification.
That's funny. When you asked that question, I didn't at all think of repertoire. I don't know what that says about me. That's
Everyone's
what you
totally
were
different,
talking
though.
about. So you were
No,
talking
no, no.
about like what piece
No,
perhaps would I
your answer is great. We had
yeah.
someone say 4 minutes and 33 seconds. We've had someone
Yeah.
would steal the entire
That's a
percussion section.
clever one. I mean, that's a clever one. Yeah.
It's everybody answers
Yeah.
it differently, and I love that because it kind of shows like what's the thing that they just wish they could
Their secret
try, and they
desire
think
is.
it's
Yeah,
silly.
yeah,
They think it's silly, or they think it's.
yeah.
I like the idea though of again your answer is we're going to take a group of people and we're going to all be in this adventure
This
together.
space adventure together. Yeah.
Yeah, bodes well for next week. It's going to
Yeah.
be a fun time.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to making music. So
Us too.
yeah.
Us too.
So
We're
thank
looking
you.
forward to having you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And it's actually happening. We just booked my ticket. A little late, but
Great.
my tickets are booked and we're ready to go.
Great. Oh, it's going to be a lot of fun. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah.
We're really looking forward to it.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you, Serena. We'll see you all soon.
See you
See you.
soon.
All right. Cheers. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.